a few weeks ago, we went on and we said, look, the Ghana Bar Association, we are not feeling them at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, credit to them.
Fire no day.
The credit to them, they have come this morning. I don't know if they are bearing gifts, but they've come this morning. Ketsi Papa Kwakwe and the president, Yao Achampon Boafo. I just want to go through the list of some of the former presidents whilst Yao comes into the studio. So, okay, Nathan, let's do a quiz. I'm counting, right? 1, 2. Okay, I want to do a small quiz for you. Okay, Yao Achampon Boafo is the GBA president who took over in 2021. What number is he in the list, roughly?
What number is he?
Yeah, is he the...
Hold on. 9.
The 9th GBA president?
Yeah.
You are so far behind. You are so far behind. You are so far behind.
Okay. I thought of a number. I thought it was a little too outlandish. 20th?
No.
Okay. 18th?
No. Okay, so the 9th GBA president in the list I have, this list could be wrong, right? The 9th GBA president, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is somebody called Edward Nathaniel Moore. Okay. 1971 to 72. So that gives you a sense. And then you said 18th. Okay,
so that's still not
10,
here.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
that's
16,
still
17.
not here.
18th was Samoku Jeto.
So that's not too far away.
Samoku Jeto was between 95 and 98.
Okay.
So after...
So he should be 21st.
No?
20th.
Charlie, no, Charlie, you are not a lawyer. So it will not. So Samoku Jeto was the 18th for my list. This could be wrong. I stand to be corrected. Then you have 19th was Joseph Ebo Kwashi, 98 to 2001. Then Paul Edu Jemfi for a short stint in 2001 before Kwame Tete took over as well. Solomon Kwame Tete. Neo Samuels, who you know, former minister, he was the next. So you have 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. So Samuels was 22nd. Frank Beecham was 23rd, 09 to 2012. Nene Abegache, 24th. 2012 to 2015. Benson Uchukwi, 25th. 2015 to 2018. Tony Forson Jr., 26th. So Yao Achampon Boafo, for my list, is the 27th Ghana Bar Association president. Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You know the funny thing? You're all men. That's the first problem. In 2023, a 147-year-old association is a big association, and you are the 27th man to lead it. I don't know. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, but
I'm sure we can correct that by the time you leave office.
well, I don't control.
You don't control that. How do they choose? How do they choose the presidents?
Voting by members in good standing.
Oh, has any woman ever offered herself for?
Yes, on 2 occasions against Mr. Forson and myself.
Oh, okay. So which woman went against you?
This is Ifwagate.
Oh, then you really won because Ifwagate is strong. Oh, then you really won. Because Ifwagate, I know Ifwagate. I think she's one of these aglo type women. She's very, very dynamic, very strong woman. Wow. So you had competition from a woman. Okay. Hopefully we'll get a woman before 2030. Hopefully we should.
Well, I don't have clairvoyant powers.
You know, when you're interviewing lawyers, they don't want to commit themselves to even simple statements around hope. So you are the 27th, right? So that's why she started in 1957?
Yes. Iris Blay was the first.
Iris Blay. Wow. And I'm seeing some great names. J.B. Dankwa, Victor Usu, William Oforiatta, Joe Appiah. Very powerful. A lot of us used to think, they said the first lawyer in Ghana was John Mensah Saba. Is that correct?
Or for Ghanaian.
First Ghanaian.
If you look at the rule of lawyers, I think it was 18-something. Neville Porter was the first person.
Okay.
They entered the rule of lawyers. You know, when you were asking Nathan about our numbers,
Yeah.
I thought you were asking about individual numbers. You know, we have, when Mr. Forson was president,
Okay.
I was secretary. We digitized our stuff, so every lawyer has a peculiar number. And that was, so I'm 2812, the 2,812th lawyer to be called in Ghana. So we have it.
Are you serious?
Yes.
So from number 1.
Yeah, Nigerian Porter.
So this includes those who even are dead.
Yes, it's a number that's peculiar to you.
So it's a bit like Opoku School and their numbers.
Well, that one is a different matter.
That's not like a 0 to 100 kind of number.
I don't like talking about Opoku.
But you went to Prempeh College.
Where else?
I can see. So you are lawyer 2,800.
And 2812.
Is that a lot or small for a country of 30 million?
That was in 1995, so you can just imagine. But the numbers have increased. For example, this year, if you look at those who were called in November and May, the main call and the mini call. We did 1,045.
Okay, so then the numbers are
Oh,
increasing.
naturally. I
Yeah.
mean, for example, in the past, you'd have done that in a decade. Because we're doing around 80 a year, 80 a year. But now we're doing 1,045 a year. And I think that looking at the numbers at the law school now, it's increasing.
So despite all the complaints that we are not expanding the space between 95 when you were called to the bar and today, we can say there's been a sizable increase.
I'll just give a statistic. When we amended our constitution. We have fora elections, young lawyers forum, women's forum, and in-house lawyers. When they did the since the past 7 years, we doubled those who have called to the bar in the last 7 years. I doubled the number since 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's big. Statistically, that's significant because in populations,
I think we have over 5,000, about almost 6,000 lawyers. I must say about 5,500 lawyers.
because in statistics, Nathan, at the time it takes for population to double itself is usually sometimes 30 or 40
30,
years.
40. Yeah.
So if you can double your numbers in that period,
7 years, yeah.
that's serious. So a lot of people want to do law. A lot of people want to be lawyers. A lot of people want to be called to the bar. So there are more people who probably studied law at the basic university, whatever level, but they've not actually been called. So is it better for society to have more lawyers?
It's better for society to have more professionals.
Okay.
But there must be a corresponding opportunity for people to practice that profession. You know, one of the difficulties that we have, and talking about statistics, I mean, you guys who did economics will know more than I do. 85% of lawyers in Ghana work in Accra, the Greater Accra region.
Serious?
Yes, 85%.
Wow.
Yes. So,
wow.
You know, at times people talk about opportunities.
Accra, not Accra, Kumasi.
No.
Accra.
85% of lawyers in Ghana work in Accra.
That's from
Yeah. So the question is, when you are training, is like what the doctors will tell you. If you're going to train more specialists, and the regional hospitals are not going to be elevated to the standards of resource the standard of teaching hospitals. What's the essence of having maybe 2,000 cardiothoracic surgeons only for all of them to work at Kolebu? So these are sort of the challenges. So there must be, you know, most of these things, the way it starts like piecemeal. And I think that in all these things, there must be some synergy. We have 3 stages of the training of a lawyer: the academic, the professional, the most important, the post-qualification as a lawyer training. Now, if you go to this is at times the problem most people don't understand. When the discussions are being had, people will say, okay, fine. At the undergraduate level, UG can take this number, UCC can take KNUST, Mount Carey, they just talk about, okay, fine. And then people will say, okay, the law school must be expanded to say, take this number. But when you leave law school, you have a Legal Profession Act that regulates the profession. You need to have chambers where a lawyer at least 7 years standing can be the only person to be a pupil master. How many registered chambers do you have in Ghana that can take these individuals to let them go through pupillage? That is where, if you don't take care, the very thing that people are scared of, elitism, then becomes the norm, because those whose parents have the same names, those whose parents have the clients connected, are the ones who are going to get pupillage for their awards. So you may have a situation where, if you don't have that synergy, you don't have that discussion, you train them, yes, but ultimately they will not get chambers to do their pupillage. So that's a discussion that we must have.
Apart from the number difference in terms of in the 50s and 60s and today, what is the most significant way the profession and the association has changed between, say, the days of Victor Usu, William Oforiatta, Joe Appiah, and today?
Oh, but a lot. You know, I think that even for us, you see, the difficulty at times for us, general in Ghana, is reforming, changing the world. If you look at the Ghana Bar Association, our structure was fit for the days of Victor Usu and the Samuel Kujetus, because in those days you could count on your fingers the number of lawyers in Ghana. So you could have a part-time secretary, a part-time president. You know that running association was not as tedious. And I'm saying this thing because my dad in 82 to 85, when J.K. Ajimine was national president, was the national secretary. How many lawyers in Ghana? As I said, the last 7 years, we have literally doubled our numbers. Now, the president of an association over 5,000 or 6,000 members, now you have to process people's solicitor's license, practicing certificates for them. And democracy also has its own thing. You're a member of this council, you represent the bar, president has to be here, secretary has to be here. I've been secretary before, I've been president before. Can we run an association and provide the services that our members need with this part-time thing where we still have to do our practices and still do these things? So that's one of the major challenges that we face, trying to move into the New Testament with Old Testament stuff, what Jesus Christ warned us, we don't put new wine in old wineskins. So these are discussions that we keep on having. That look, we cannot, for me, if there is something that I really want us to look at, especially as I leave next year, is that we must have a deep conversation, about resourcing the Ghana Bar Association so that it can provide the services that its members need and be association that it is. We cannot have a structure or a governance structure that has been in place since I think the 80s and expect it to work.
So are you saying that because the type of governance system we have has changed to a full-blown democracy as against the military years, in addition to the fact that there are more numbers to cope with in the technological world, what the GBA means in 2023 is not what it means in 81?
Absolutely. Because, for example, now we have to process the practicing certificate of any practicing lawyer in Ghana. And, individuals with IT experience are literally sacrificing to do this thing for us free. Now, the secretary, the president, nobody gets anything. We are all doing it. Of course, it's very prestigious and honorable. But the question is, can we sustain it in the next decade? Is it sustainable? Those are the questions that we have to be asking. Because the challenges of the demand on the president of the bar now, for example, in the days of the military dictatorship, who would even want to invite the bar president to, say, give a lecture before security agencies swarm the place? But if I look at people inviting you here, and you cannot be a master of everything. You don't even have a research assistant to help you out. So you have to use fall on your own resources to do research on the various topics that you've been asked to come and speak on. So these are the questions that we have to look at.
But can't somebody say, if in 81, 82, all the way to 92, lawyers who headed the bar had the courage to speak truth to power, shouldn't it be much easier for a president in 2023 to do this? So if Samoku Jeto and all the names I mentioned did all the brave things they did, and then now that there's more freedom, rather the association doesn't say anything.
But you see, this thing about that's even the more reason why people should understand the changing times. I said somewhere that you don't read the book of Lamentations in the time of Hebrews. You see, in the days of old, the existence of the state itself was unconstitutional. So every single day there was something to speak about. And issuing statements was the highest form of protest. You get the point? And this is what actually happened. Let's put it there. You had only the Radio Ghana or GTV, at that time was Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. What they used to do was that when the bar issued a statement, they would, from the editorial, they'll read it out and then state the government's position, end up insulting the bar or saying something. So people heard. That was the only time. But fast forward this era, and I'll give you a specific example. When we had the violence associated with the Ayabaso
West by-election,
I was then secretary. We issued a statement, and Mr. Forson signed before I signed. Then we handed over to our national PR at that time, Mrs. Yah Jacobo. Later in the evening, he called me, Ayav, have you heard of the news? And I was like, I've been monitoring, I've not really heard it being broadcast anywhere. Fast forward, after our 2019 bar conference, the NDC sent us an invitation that President Mahama was meeting stakeholders. I think they were putting together their manifesto and wanted to meet us. We met him, and then the secretary, that time now the chairman of the NDC, accused us of having kept quiet. And we told him, look, we issued a statement. I was listening to the vetting of Ms. Howard Compson. Good. Because we specifically condemned his action of pulling a gun. And I now realized that the minority leader was quoting our statement.
In that vetting.
Yes, the question is, you see, the bar statement it's like a newborn baby. There must be breast milk in your mother's breast for you to survive. We don't control the production policy of the respective media houses. So, Bernard, if the bar issues a statement and Citi decides not to broadcast it, we cannot control it. And I was asking myself, how come something happened that the specific rebuke of Mavis Howard comes in that statement, it just sort of vanished in the media landscape. So we've issued a lot of statements.
But yeah, that could mean many things. It could be the timing of the release of the statement. It could be the choice of the modus of communication. So if a statement doesn't gain traction within a very controversial time, it's more your communication tool that should be questioned and not the relevance of the fact that GB has issued a statement. So I'm pushing back to say, look, the association is supposed to be one of the conscience of the nation. So you find a way to be relevant. So your articles of incorporation don't say issue statements. You use various tools. There are lectures, there are sit-ins, there are strikes, there are statements. So if you issue a statement and people don't use it, that's just half of the story. The other story could be maybe they should have done something else. Do you get me? So I'm not sure if that example is enough to absolve the association of dereliction of moral leadership in the country.
Bernard, that was the prologue to the main story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we issued a statement on Muntaka's accusation that a judge had spoken to one of the MPs in relation to the speaker, that one was broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
When we issued a statement when the MP for Medina said there were political judges, that one was broadcast. Good. Now, so Bernard, using your own premise, then you have to start questioning the strategy of statements in this context. When I took office, I decided that, listen, do we want to make effect change or we just want to be heard? That is the question. That was the dilemma. So I spoke to my National Executive Committee members that let's look at changing a bit of tack, because if you look at this Fourth Republic, maybe one of the most difficult conflicts that we had with the Dagbon crisis, but it was resolved through a dialogue. It wasn't resolved through anything. If you look at what our eminent chiefs did, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's Nobel Prize stuff. So I said, okay, fine. Let's pursue the path of dialogue. And that required that we paid a courtesy call on security chiefs and other members. When these matters come, we would pursue dialogue. Because for me, Bernard, if there is something that the GBA can be accused of, and I think that is one thing I'll raise my head, is that we've not taken advantage of the democratic structures to effect change. I want us to to commence more actions when there are infractions on human rights and achieving social justice. And that is exactly the precedent our ancients set for us. You realize that after 1993, when the Constitution came into effect, the GBA took a lot of matters to the Supreme Court to get orders that can be enforceable. Because for me, in a democracy, court orders can be enforced. If there is maybe an infringement of a human right, I would rather the GBA takes a public interest matter to court, get orders that can be, or pro bono services for the person, than issuing a statement, just putting out in that context, So we started dialogue. And one of the things that has happened is that we've pursued it. And you actually will be able to achieve change, but people may not hear it. And that maybe it's one thing. But still, we've not taken away statements. And when we feel that our voice must be heard within that context. But now it's like a two-pronged strategy. Where it's dialogue, we pursue dialogue. Where it is where the statement, we show a statement.
Okay.
I know the problem is people are saying that, I think that's maybe where you're going. People are saying that we have not been fair to a particular political tradition.
Yes. The view is that the association, two things, there are two issues. Historically has been steeped in the MPP tradition. So let me give you the names. So I'm just giving the names of your former presidents, the past 28. Of the ones that are political, so R.S. Blay, Archicus Hayford, J.B. Dankwa, Victor Wusu, William Oforiatta, Joe Appiah, Joe Randolph, Edward Nathaniel Moore, Kwashi Aidan, Peter Lajete, Samuku Jeto. These names are more associated with the MPP tradition than the NDC. In fact, on this list, the only person I can say who was explicitly NDC that I know is Neo Samuels. There are some I don't know. Some were not necessarily political. So the first issue is that the association itself, don't forget that the UGCC was seen as a group of businessmen, lawyers, and the elite. So MPP tradition is steeped in elitism, of which lawyers are a part. We can't deny this. So the view is that the ethos of the GBA itself favors the right of center political tradition, which is the MPP's antecedents. That's point number one. Point number two, in periods of the NDC being in office, the association seems to be more vocal. In fact, there are cases they've mentioned. For example, in 2010, the GBA vice president, Menka Premo, was talking about corruption in the judiciary, misconduct of judges. Lots of things happened. This was under Mills getting into Mahama. The feeling is that when MPP is in office, the association picks and chooses what it wants to comment on, irrespective of who is the president. Right? So these are the two issues. The historical evidence that I've pointed you to. And then for example, if you want me to go further, if you go to this government, there are all kinds of things that have happened which have not received any comment or statement. But I will let you address it before I go to that. So the historical issue, and then the time, the frequency of intervention and the force of intervention by the association when MPP is in office versus when NDC is in office.
Okay, Bernard, when was the NDC formed? If you're going to talk about history, Joe Randolph was Attorney General under the PMP. So in that era, it was CPP, CPP, UP, UGCC. And you realize that if you were to break it down, RSB, I think Achikesley, Hayford, and those guys were more CPP. It was maybe the most, William Oforiatta, Joseph Appiah, Victor Usu, maybe the most.
So JB, Victor, Oforiatta, Joe Appiah, Joe Randolph, all those five.
Joe Randolph was actually CPP.
Okay.
He was Liman's Attorney General.
Okay, so I've given you, okay, no worry. But of the list I've given, you can say about 60% are from the UP tradition.
So let's look at, if you want to look at the context, let's look at it from 93.
Okay, fine.
And in the Fourth Republic,
fair enough.
The only bar president who has become a cabinet minister is Neil Samuels.
Yes.
You get the point?
Yeah.
Good. Now, and in the Fourth Republic, I can only say that maybe the person we can say must be most politically exposed president, maybe Samuel Kujeto, because he was a UNC MP. But you must forget that
95 to 98.
I even hear that during the 69 thing, he was part of the National Alliance of Liberals. So even his political tradition, maybe because it's crystallized recently. So you realize that contrary to the belief, it's actually not correct. Now, if you look at if you look at it now, if you look at the Fourth Republic, the point is when people are contesting, people ascribe to things. I'll tell you a funny thing. My predecessor, Anthony Forsey, I know him very, very well. Because his father was Attorney General in the NDC. He was tagged NDC. Benson Nukchupu, I don't even know how on earth he got himself. He was tagged NDC. You know, so people,
by the association.
No, you see,
but not by the public.
The public.
Really?
Yes, I mean the point.
The public tagged Benson Nukchupu NDC and I wasn't aware.
Absolutely.
Or Tony Forsey NDC and we're not aware. I didn't get the memo.
See, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that
within your publics.
No, and the funny thing is that Anthony Forsey won an election during the NDC MPP, and then against somebody whose husband is a minister of state.
Okay.
You get the point. MPP Minister of State. So, contrary to what people believe, the bar doesn't do that. Just that, you know, in this country, we become so partisan that even at times people say names, people start assuming
your party by the name.
By the name. So those are allegations. But then, what I always tell people is the difficulty we have, Bernard, is that because the NDC, it's well by their own constitution, if I'm not mistaken, it's like a successor of the PNDC. Just like a corporate takeover, where you take over the obligations and liabilities, because they believe in the ideals of June 4th. They have carried that baggage onto themselves. If you look at the bar, say from 2001, when there was really a break after President Rawlings left, nobody can tell me that the bar has treated an NDC government under President Mills or President Mahama worse than maybe President Kofi and President Nana Addo. You get the point. So the point is, it is not correct. But Bernard, I'll also tell you something. At times, people should understand that there's a time for everything. One thing that the current president, I say these things, I mean, people can read what it has done is, every year, since President Akufo-Addo took over, that's from Benson Nukchupu's time, The president makes sure when we send a request to him, we meet him. I mean, this is out of media thing, and discuss matters of state, and those are matters that maybe because they do some are normally held private, and everything that we want to tell the president, we tell the president.
Every president. Or this president?
No, this president. At least what I know is that from Benson Nukchupu's time, as President Akufo-Addo has seen 3 bar presidents, Nukchupu, Forsen, and myself.
So do you know if this practice has been there before?
I know the first time it was started was President Mohammed's time when I was regional president, Ashanti regional president, and then Justice Amegache, that time President
Amegache.
Yes, we met the President Mahama once, and I think that the first time that actually the next executive committee paid a courtesy call on a president was under President Bicham's time when President Mills took over. You get the point. So it's something that.
And of course, by the way, Mills was a lawyer, Akufo-Addo was a lawyer, so that context is also important. So maybe the bar feels more comfortable to pay a courtesy call on a lawyer president than they would a non-lawyer. I don't know.
No, we send the bar sends. I'll tell you something. Michael Quayle was a lawyer. We sent a request to meet him. He never honored it. But recently we met
as speaker.
He never honored it. But we've met Alban Somali for back then. So
it depends.
It depends on that individual.
Okay. Let me give you the chance to address a few final points on this issue before we move on. I brought you here for many other reasons. So there are a number of things that people feel like, yes, you can't comment on everything, but something like unlawful removal of Domolevo, which the Supreme Court has eventually sort of sided with him, right? And the fact that it did. Supreme Court sometimes rules on cases when the horse has already bolted. People feel like that's substantive enough to hear GBA. The issue of the non-representation of the people of SAL in Parliament has come up strongly. What the military did in Parliament on January 7 is seen as a big affront to democracy, where soldiers enter a chamber of Parliament ostensibly to keep the peace, when Parliament have their own police. The issue of the killing of Ibrahim Mohammed Kaka in Ejura, the Kennedy Japan calling judges by names live on TV. All right. Some of these things have been cited as opportunities for the bar to take a principled position, not necessarily take a partisan stance, because these things that have happened that I've mentioned, if a sitting auditor general is hounded out of office in a manner in which Domolevo was, and eventually the Supreme Court agrees with him, but sort of waits till the damage is already done. I don't know, the cases I've mentioned, has the bar issued a statement I've missed?
But I'll take you one by one answer question. Domolevo. When the matter happened, a group of individuals invoked the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to have just that the determination delayed. So immediately somebody triggers the judicial process. The bar will be incapacitated for making a comment.
Okay.
The next one would be
SAL.
SAL.
Non-representation of people of SAL in Parliament.
I think with SAL, if I'm not mistaken, that is not before the Supreme Court. I think SAL is SAL is not before the Supreme Court. So SAL we have to raise our hands on that one. Good. And then the next one is
military invasion of Parliament, January 7.
We condemn that statement together with the behavior of our parliamentarians and the military. That was what I'm saying. That statement condemned Muntaka, condemned the behavior of parliamentarians engaging in fisticuffs and the military. It was 3 in 1.
It was joint.
Joint, yeah, one statement.
Of course, you can't tell how to issue your statement, but a lot of people felt that Parliament is a master of its own rules. And yes, they can't do anything they want, but for soldiers to enter a chamber,
we condemned it.
Particularly looking at the history of Ghana and the activities of the association within the military era, to have soldiers enter Parliament in the manner they did without any serious retribution is pretty serious.
Man, do you know what we did? We did. And then Samjata George went on Facebook to attack us for attacking Muntaka. So you see, the discussion then was... Then later Muntaka apologized, but Sam George never apologized to us for calling a bunch of drunks.
What about the issue of Kaka?
Kaka, that was the subject matter of a ministerial... what do you call it? It was a commission, not like a committee of inquiry headed by Justice Kumsan.
But does that prevent the association from stating a position?
Absolutely.
No,
you see,
hold on. If a commission is looking into something, there are principles. There are things that you can say. Look, if somebody is being killed, whether there's a committee or a case, a killing is condemnable. So I'm not sure how a commission looking into something then sort of emasculates the bar from stating a position on a matter of principle. not a question of choosing sides. If somebody has been killed, the person has been killed.
Ben, one of the things that everybody has to understand is that, like they say, the umbrella of chiefs have different sizes.
Okay.
One day I'll invite to our conference room. We deliberately have set it up the way that when the bar presents us, you turn right, you do from RS Blade to Stony Folsom, and you know the difficulty you have. Our voice is different. Now, just imagine, for example, during the Ejura crisis, there were two narratives. He was killed because of his, this fix the country activism.
Social media.
Others once said it was a family feud. That was a true thing. Now, if the bar states, maybe takes the fixed counter narrative, and it turns out that look at how we feel. I'll give an example. Recently in Boko, there was this report that 3 people had been shot by the military. It's all over the place. And then I was talking to Mr. Kuje. So I said, we all agreed to wait. It turns out that it wasn't true. Now, just imagine the GBA issued a statement condemning the military. I don't have the liberty of an error. You see, so before we issue a statement, our voices may be like a paramount chief's umbrella. Others may have an Odikro umbrella, so they can get away with the gaff. Some center for this can get, but we cannot. I mean, I don't want to be the first bar president that brings X on the face of the bar. So we have to be very cautious. Now, if you look at Kennedy Japan's one, immediately he made that statement. We heard that Justice Wuni had kick-started the contempt processes against him. Then that becomes a sub judice matter. So, Bernard, you see, we are governed by certain, we work with these certain parameters. So, the center for this, now there's the social society space. It's very, very crowded. They can.
So are you saying that professional bodies cannot act necessarily as pressure groups because of the changes in the times?
We can. We do, but ours must be something where there's no margin of error. Because, for example, when Kennedy Japan makes a statement, and then a judge says that, okay, fine, I have cited you for contempt, the bar has to hold his guns there. Any other person can still criticize Kennedy Japan. So, so it is not because Kennedy Japan is MPP. It's just because immediately he made those statements. Justice Wuni, there was a problem, and then he also went to Supreme Court that to prohibit the charge. So there's all these judicial processes. For the average person coming to a radio station, yes, you can make those comments.
So I say now when something is in court, because another one people point out to, when the journalists who criticized the First Lady were prosecuted in a criminal manner, some people feel that in the era of
free speech,
the repeal of criminal libel, that matter should have been treated as a civil matter. I know it's a specific case, but for media freedom watchers, in fact, there's a feeling that there's a reversibility in media freedom. The Speaker of Parliament last week made comments about that journalists are frequently attacked these days. So the association is supposed to be an ally of the media in that space.
Yes. Bernard, you see, this is so at times, it hurts me when the media accuses us. We go to the conference at home. It's a GBA conference. So I guess that the speech of the bar president will reflect the position of the GBA. Condemned the, we had dropped on the World
Freedom rankings significantly.
And attacks on pressmen specifically. Only for everybody to report on the Attorney General's speech. As if the Attorney General was the main...
the same media decided to articulate the Attorney General and ignore what you said for us.
The point is, I can finish with my speech. And the point is, and the bar supposed to have kept quiet. And I was like, the bar conference, it's the most important meeting of the GBA. You had everybody there. The President of the Republic was sitting just two. The Attorney General was sitting next to me. Everybody was there. Condemned attacks on media freedoms and erosion. The next time I heard, Attorney General says John Mahama should not have gone to court. The bar doesn't have its. We don't have.
You don't have a radio station.
We don't have a.
No, but that is a bit problematic. I agree with you. That so sometimes the journalists, sometimes we cover. They're looking for news angles.
And for me, I was like, I'm accused of being in bed with the government. Now I come out of the bed to the living room to speak to the media, and they didn't want to listen. So if you look at all these matters that maybe we, as I said, the GBA for a very long time has not looked at communication. That I must raise our hands. So realize that now, Mr. Kujet, that's a lot of things. I rarely speak, and it's deliberate because what we've done is that now we even have we're now using social media. I was talking about how at times we, the bar, we're very sort of like late in reforming. We need also to have our communications team build it up and let our story also come out. Because, for example, after the bar conference or before the bar conference, we can do a media thing, maybe a press briefing for our communiques and our resolutions. That's something that reason behind that we're not doing.
It's 9:15. My guest is Yao Echampon Boafo, Ghana Bar Association President. He's answering questions on a lot of things that people have sent. These are matters that have been in the public domain, and we are grateful you are here to face these questions. I wanted to move to some couple of areas. So the issue of professional bodies in general. Okay, now that we have 30 years of a fourth Republican democracy, do you not think that professional bodies can be more proactive in service delivery of whatever service we are getting? So whether it's built environment for engineers or the quality of service we get. And I'm using this to point you to things like remand, people in prison for the little offense, cases dragging for so long. The court system is very slow and expensive. The amount of money you need to even file, legal aid not working. I mean, what are your thoughts around what the association can do professionally to make justice delivery more accessible and affordable?
But I said I raised my hand. One of the things that hurts me, genuinely, as bar president is when we major in minors and the standard being expected of me is too low. Because, what does it take for a lawyer to write a statement? At least I think we can, with people like Paco Akwe around, we can write who are the first class in English, just like you having the first class in economics. We can have somebody to write some good English for us, not at least better than Chema to means English. You get the point. So, if that's what the bar president is all about, then, but at times I see these social injustices. And people don't seem to think that that's what we should do. If you watch WhatsApp platforms, the bar president would be rated for no issue a statement here, there. But we started this Father's Day, Mother's Day program where on Mother's Day, all our female colleagues around the country gather and go and make a donation, maybe less privileged. We are the only professional who do that, actually. I say we'll go to heaven more than anybody else. So we were in Sawon prison on Father's Day. And it's shocking. And I've told my National Council members that there's a day that I'll drag all of them there. When we went there and, what people are saying, we don't have sentencing reform. We don't have sentencing reform. Bernard, there are certain things that we've been picking up, but nobody seems to want to listen. We don't have sentencing reform. This issue about minimum sentencing, it's something that really gets me boiling. And it's all personal experience. I'll share one personal experience with you. I've had a problem with this minimum sentencing. In Gaso, a 15-year-old got pregnant. His parents, the boy's parents are farmers in Ahafo. So, and the lady, he got pregnant, lives with the grandmother. So, typical young boy who's got himself a whole lot of trouble. He denied the pregnancy. So the illiterate grandmother goes to the police station. This boy has gotten my granddaughter pregnant. So in a mind, that's a criminal offense.
Yes.
But because 15 years, strict liability, then the police decided to charge the boy with defilement. That's not what's wrong with that. And then later the parents came, accepted responsibility. So the grandmother goes to the police. Then they were told that the boy has been in prison for 7 years, and that's the minimum. The
15-year-old boy is in prison for 7.
The boy is about 19 or something, but the lady is 15.
Okay.
Now, this is just so in the farming community. Now, when the matter came before Justice Alsuji Abo, we cannot do anything about it. This grandmother was screaming. It turned out that the lady, I think, even had a child when she was 13 or 14. But then the point is, for me, the young boy in that farming community being in prison for 7 years minimum.
Who is a father of a child whose mother might not even have money.
And then somebody steals cables, those and then it gets 4 or 5 years as a deterrent. So
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so we don't leave judges the discretion. Recently, somebody was telling me some lady who sells one of these aphrodisiacs.
Yeah,
I think somebody drank it and got baptism or something. But because there was this minimum sentence thing, so this. Wickedness in high places attitude towards sentencing.
Straight jacket.
Where we don't look at the facts of the case. For me, let's look at our social structure. It's a 15-year-old girl who lives in Airport Hills is thinking about going to Wesley Girls. She doesn't even know something. But I know in Bantama there's a place called Abunsamjum where 15-year-old girls I mean, if you get the point.
I get
I'm
you.
not saying, but you see, so imprison somebody for 7 years for having sexual thing with.
It doesn't take. So what is the association doing or going to do about that?
This is the things that I feel passionate about. That's the
Very
thing
good.
that I think people should hold me responsible.
Wonderful.
For example, how many times do we go to court? I will tell you something. Recently, I was having a discussion that the law says that a certain percentage of VAT should be paid for, set aside for get fund and any child. They are always in arrears. Does the finance minister have the power to give these monies as and when he chooses? Monies that the law says 2.5% of VAT is for any child. These are matters that we should go to court and test to see, because if the court makes an order that says that immediately monies are paid, it is set aside for any. Are you going to have problems in our health sector or our educational sector, infrastructure-wise? These are the things that I think we should hold as response. For example, sentencing reforms. These are things that are dear to our heart. These are things that the GBA should be doing. I agree with you. You know, for example, we as a profession, we encourage people to do pro bono. You get the point. Lawyers have done very well, but we can do better than what we're doing. And that, for me, should be the challenge facing us.
Is this something a bar association leadership can do within a term? An issue like taking up reduction in custodial sentencing, the kind of reform that you see with plea bargaining, and then also clearing the prisons of remand prisoners. Are these things an association within a term, which I think is 4 years? Or how long?
The problem is, you know, we are dependent on the Attorney General sending a bill to Parliament and our parliamentarians taking it serious, you know. But at least if we intensify our advocacy, you get the point, it would go a long way. Of course, it still depends on the priorities of government. You see the point. But the problem is, those are the things that really bother me, you know, and that's what bothers us as a country. The number of people that we're putting in prison is quite scary.
Yeah.
And the way our prisons, and you know, why should somebody go to prison for something, you know, all these
Stealing
fines?
plantain.
Yeah, and I don't know where we got this thing that if we make sentences more severe,
It will deter crime.
without dealing with the causes of crime, that alone will deter.
So you have a lot of things to say about this. There's a story that will interest you. Somebody just sent me one where the district court in Kasua,
the cursing one.
yes, for cursing a police officer.
I must say that we have seen that one. We've put it on our national council and we've asked our central bar people to look into the matter.
Okay.
But I know that there are some lawyers who have even decided on the Learned Friends platform that they'll take the matter
Yeah.
pro bono.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, Ben, and exactly that's another point. We forget that Ghana goes beyond Accra. If sometimes we see the things some of our judges in far-flung, far remote areas do, there was an experience that there was a time, I think my junior lawyer days, I was sitting in court and a state attorney showed me some record of proceedings. There was this Kusasi boy in the Tubodom area who was hired as a farmhand, you know, by day. And the farm owner refused to pay him. So in front of him, he said, okay, then I'm uprooting this tuber of yam to go and cook for my wife and children.
Okay.
For some reason, they reported him to the police. He was charged with stealing. And he actually told the judge that this is what I did. And that's how the record of proceedings captured it. He was in prison for 8 years. So I think he was in jail for about 4 years, and he was, you know, this prisoner transfer, he was sent to Kumasi. And one of the Kusasi, he was talking to him, so he decided to take it matter. And Justice Ziblim was fuming. And that gave me, okay, look, these are the things that are being done. This Kaswa thing, if somebody had not picked up and put on social media, 12 months for cursing the police, you get the point. And one of the things too that we also have to look at is this. What is the effect on donor funding on some of these things? At times, I have a problem with our DOPSU people. That look, it's not everything that we take to the court. You know, some of these matters can be resolved. But at times, when you have pressure on people, recently, you know, all this BBC documentary about when you have pressure on people because of donor funding to hit certain targets, these are some of the problems that we have to face. So these are discussions that
Mr. President, why I agree with your view on what you want to be remembered for, I think the main problem you face is the expectation of Ghanaians, particularly within the Fourth Republic. It's 30 years, right? Our mindset have been shaped by a very even militant association. I use that word with extreme care, right? In terms of advocacy and also being a moral compass for oppressed people in the country. Now, the fact that we have a democracy which changes government every 4 years does not mean there's no oppression. And the fact that we vote in elections does not mean that we are getting good governance. So I think the reason a lot of people keep pushing back and saying the association is losing relevance is because they still expect you to be at the vanguard of defending. And do you get my point? So you are all the things you say you want to do make sense on paper, but where Ghanaians see what GBA means to Ghanaians, they still picture Peter Alajete, they still picture Samuku Jeto, they still picture an association that could take on Rawlings. All right. Now, if they feel, and I know there's partisanship, but you can't tell me that every issue in Ghana politically is partisan. There are some issues that we all know wrong is wrong. So I'm pushing back to say you have a challenge in convincing people that the GBA, to the minds of the public, not to the members of the association, is fit for purpose. Do you get my point? How do you convince Ghanaians that, yes, this is the GBA, or they should forget, it's not going to happen?
But, one of the things, I think we were having a discussion with Caleb and outside there, that we don't seem to have maybe an objective barometer to determine what is public opinion. You may have elite noise makers. Bernard, nobody should understand. Peter Jete wasn't a bad president, a highly partisan, volatile political party. The GBA must maintain that voice, that standard. Most people need the GBA to validate their positions. When these things happen, you have a lot of partisan posturing, and everybody needs the GBA's position to validate up, because if the GBA says this thing, like when Haruna Idrusu realized that we had condemned maybe our common sense action, that was it. Look, I'll give you an example. The only minister of state whose action has attracted the problem of the GBA is maybe our common sense, and he's not an NDC. Bernard, one of the things about democracy, 30 years. This is the first time in the history of this country any generation has seen it. So I think that maybe all of us, because it's the first time, there is no precedent for us to work with. So we are still got stuck up in a bit of, the old and the new. For me, one thing that we've done well is that in the days of old, we still have excesses, I'm not saying, but in the days of old where it was a norm, has reduced. So naturally, you're going to have it reduced. We are now looking at issues at governance and everything. But my problem is, for example, if a government manifesto comes out that I want to implement this policy when I'm elected, and the policy is implemented, for me, it's the electorate to pay the government back. For example, the government says I want to implement the free SHS. If people say that, some people are saying that it's a drain on our resources, because others say that we're going to get a benefit. It's for the electorate to decide. Those things we don't get, but those are the things that engage people.
People are interested in those
things,
which you think is not necessarily what you are there for.
No, most forget that when Mr. Kwame Tete became bar president, he made the point that the bar would make comments on matters of national interest, not political matters. We're going to stay away from it. So when you have divisions, for example, during this ACA Jubilee Fields thing, NDC was saying this, MPP was saying this, you watch it.
Is there space in that milieu to do like a So I'll give you an example. If there's a dispute over a project where ICAG can independently let an audit team do their own valuation as a professional body and say this is our view, or maybe we are trying to start a project and the engineers can say this is our own feasibility. Is there space within that for GBA to say, in the interest of the public, because there's a conversation around Ejapa, as an example, when it initially broke out, we will have a legal team that we've constituted by council to give a reasoned legal opinion to help the process.
Absolutely.
Is that possible?
Absolutely. You see, one thing that you have to understand is the government, successive governments, have also push the GB aside. Recently, we are engaging, and I must raise my hand, our current Attorney General has done an absolutely brilliant. So now almost every bill is brought to us for our comments.
Yeah.
A lot of bills have passed. And it creates a problem. Look at the Presidential Transition Act. It was discussed on the GB, and they later realized that they were patently unconstitutional provisions, like when Parliament should rise, and, even though the Supreme Court has not struck it out, we had to amend it ourselves. These are some of the things that happen. We still have the monopoly on that resource called law. Recently, in talking about things that matter, myself, Professor Buchi, decided that, okay, AFCFTA, the dispute settlement process is being discussed. The dispute settlement chamber We are yet to determine where it should be cited. Let's make a case for Accra.
Thank you.
Also, under the Alternative Dispute Resolution Act, governments must set up an arbitral body. Let's set an Accra. So we can even start, okay, fine, by rule, maybe something like $20 million, all commercial agreements, the seat to be in Accra, something small. After some time, we'll build that
the capacity.
Yes, Accra then becomes the dispute settlement center of Africa. Wonderful. These are the things that, but you see, when you raise these matters, nobody wants to listen.
They are interested in politics.
They
are just looking for elections.
Yes, and they'll tell you that those things don't bring votes.
So they are looking for votes.
So the difficulty is that, and you see, the point is that if the bar starts a program of trying to get after dispute settlement chamber cited in Accra or the ADR, I think maybe Citi FM, you may give us some space, but the other person will not.
Do. But even last week you were here.
No, I mean, you may give it, but you see, the others may not.
But I just want to explore this issue further of professional reasoned opinion. Is there an appetite in the association for that?
Absolutely. If you bring it to us, trust me. Recently they're doing this anti-money laundering guidelines for professional bodies. Yeah. The consultants FIs came to see us, and we set up a team.
Good.
Headed by Sata Sante, to look at, because you see, nobody has that capacity more than us.
Yeah, I'm saying this because we have 30 years of democracy, and the challenge, as you said, this is the most successful republic, so we have to be grateful for this. But to make it better, we need to mediate or moderate the extreme partisanship of the two leading political parties. Absolutely. And one way of doing that is what is called voice. Now, voice means who do you listen? So let's assume we are discussing free SHS. You can bring MPP or NDC and they will tell you what they think. Now, you can bring a professional body like NAT. When NAT comes in, they will say, as teachers, we think that this should be done, this should not be done. It's not necessarily political, it's not necessarily partisan, even though it's political. So what I'm saying is that the association has over how many thousand lawyers? A lot of the issues that have come up that the politicians have been playing football with, ECA, GENSA, there are lots of them which are very technical, and I know some of your members are making money from them. But I feel like the association should go to be a light to say, well, based on this, I know it's a very difficult path, but you can say, look, professionally, because engineers do that. In fact, Kanasigbe and Co have an engineers association where now, when they are built environment issues, they make comments proactively because they realize that, in fact, they claim you guys have even run the country for too long, lawyers, and it's not helping. So they want engineers to even come and be president, but that's a different matter. Again, the accountants sometimes come in. There's an analysis on something.
The accountants own the country now. They get all the juicy
Exactly.
things.
So don't you think it will be a more lasting legacy for the GBA to now be seen providing, because Parliament, for example, does not have, an independent budget office. So Parliament's ability to independently scrutinize the executive is very limited. You have enough mental material to fill that gap. Maybe you have to convince your members that because important issues that inure to the future of our resources have become so partisan. Look at energy deals. Here we are with, what's the name of what do you call it? No, the power deal that went through Ejakun. I forget the name.
Ameri.
I mean, I'm sure that there could have been an independent assessment of the power purchase agreements, a GBA opinion. We will use it too much. That was nothing.
But you see, that is if the PP we brought to us because some of your colleagues are also doing this. But you see, we suffer from the burden of history, and our members are guilty of this. Let me give you an example. If you look at the Fourth Republic, now Securities and Exchange Commission, Insolvency and Restructuring Real Estate Agency Act. Today, the accountants are even telling us that we have to be licensed to do conveyancing. We sat there, and insolvency is now controlled by Garia. That's exactly my point. Because you see, the GBA still has this core constituency that forgets that essentially we're a professional body. But people still think that we, because we led during the military era, all these professional bodies.
Oh, so you face that internally too?
Seriously?
I mean,
no.
Right.
Internal, because you see, lawyers and politics are like Siamese twins.
They like it.
Unfortunately for us, and I say this thing, we are the only profession that our members go to politics
and don't lose their membership.
No. Oh. And they actually forget us. You see, you get the point. For example, there are accountants in Parliament. When acts are being passed, they are trying to fill in the place, and so now they get all the juicy thing. The GBA doesn't even get representation or anything. There are doctors in Parliament. But anytime the matter for the GLC comes, you see the lawyers in Parliament are the ones who turn against their own association. So on lawyers' platforms, partisan lawyers have taken points. The question for me is, let's take Ameri. Ameri was a political hot potato.
Yes.
Political hot potato. If the GBA had set up, because we have a legal committee.
Yeah.
And come up with maybe look at the PPA.
A nuance angle.
Yeah. And then it's eventually going to support one side.
It may not necessarily.
I'm just saying that maybe.
It may even say that both of them are missing the point.
Absolutely. That would be
beautiful.
But unfortunately, if it ends up supporting one side, and God forbid it ends up supporting the MPP side, we might as well have stayed at home.
No, but I think I'm pushing back. You see, leadership is not doing what people. This is what I'm saying. If you do it consistently enough, people will know that you have been objective in doing it. Because I'm a media man. A lot of the issues that are discussed in the media, the answer is more nuanced than the angles the two sides present. So usually, when a professional body steps in, they may agree with one side more than the other. But when you read the full thing they put, I realize that there are so many layers. So my angle is that if professional bodies, last week Yaun Saku spoke on the platform of professional bodies on the Fourth Republic. Professional bodies, by the nature of their association, have the best of everything. So if you are looking for the best energy lawyers, you know them.
Yes.
NDC and MPP will just use the ones who maybe are NDC or MPP.
Yes.
Right? So if you say you want to get 3 of the top people, of course you may not be able to pay them, but you can say it's part of your national service. This Ameri thing is a big deal, or this whatever. So I'm saying that the fact that it can be twisted to support one side is not the issue. The issue is, does it help the process and does it help the citizens get
it does help
insight into the truth? It says, let justice fall, let justice do the heavens fall. So don't be afraid of where the chips may lie. Right?
The media must help the country. I think at times we also give too much oxygen to our partisans to breathe. I wish Caleb was here. We're having this discussion, and I was asking myself that, why is it that when such technical matters come, we don't even start the conversation with independent experts? For example, we have a problem with PPA or any of these energy deals. Why don't you bring our petroleum, our petroleum sector, who are not notable? Because you see now, some of our civil society groups, independent think tanks have unfortunately been seen as aligned.
Luckily, funny thing, the economics and finance side have a lot of that. So for example, during the financial side, there are lots of independent people you get to speak to. And as you said, the lawyers, typically they are more partisan. So you don't have that many independent lawyers. Or they don't.
Bernard, unfortunately for the media, you guys have a list of lawyers you call.
Okay.
You see, when Mr. Forson was president, we told them that anytime you need expertise, you wrote the request through the bar.
You can give us more people.
We will give you people you'll be shocked about. You see, the thing about Ghana is that we are blessed nation at times we don't even know. Of course, we have our problems. There are a lot of deep thoughts in this nation, just that they've not been given the opportunity. So my point is, anytime I'll tell any media person, listen, if you
you can publish a list of legal experts on 20 areas, put it on your website. These are the people you can choose from.
We may face issues with our legal profession rules and touting and everything.
Okay.
So you see the point.
No, you can put it out for civil, for public education, and for public interest law.
Somebody whose name is not in that list will then take.
No, you can form a committee and say, if you are interested, put your name there.
The best thing is just route the request to us. We will tell you.
You see, because the realities of modern broadcasting don't allow that. So what I'm saying to you is that, look, if I have an issue with the currency, there are 10 people I can call who will not be called NDC or MPP who can speak about the currency.
Absolutely.
Some of them work in banks, some of them are economists, some of them are lecturers, but they are available and we know them. My point is that because the lawyers,
because nobody has tagged the Institute of Engineers as MPP. Nobody has tagged the Ghana Association of Bankers as. Unfortunately, we are the only profession that people have decided to tag as this.
See, so you have this baggage.
Wrong baggage. Wrong baggage. But you see, the thing is, it's because our ancients fought Rollins as a military ruler. People think that we are carrying this thing over to now. No, but nobody.
Later, I'll read a few comments and we wrap up. My guest this morning for breakfast, and he hasn't even been giving breakfast though. So we will give him something to drink before he goes. He's the 27th or so bar president, and he says, look, there's a lot of things he wants to do. he takes some of the criticism, but he also says we can't be reading Lamentations in Hebrews. I thought that was quite interesting. But you do know that in the New Testament, you find a lot of Old Testament quoted in the New.
Of course, Jesus Christ came to fulfill and not to abolish.
So he even quoted a lot of Lamentations.
Absolutely, yes. And that was the time of James, Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John. But not Hebrews, Lamentations, and then the Hebrews.
We'll come back and read a few comments. We're talking to the GBA president. Stay with us.
This is the Citi Breakfast Show.
Wow. So you work fully as a lawyer, and then you also...
But my Nigerian counterpart takes 2 years off. And
it's like a sabbatical to just do this.
Yeah, and then he gets all the things. You know,
and he gets paid too.
Yeah, the Nigerian bar president has protocol.
It's like a national level. Oh my God!
Nigerian bar president has state protocol. I think
it's part of the state system.
Until this year, when they started taking away subsidies for fuel and everything, they were actually being subsidized by the federal government.
But that compromises their independence.
Well,
so I think you are in a better position.
No, we will not do. I mean,
because he means he's part of the problem.
No, but the point is, in Ghana, we will take, because I mean, seriously, if any government gives the bar money, that would be they that the bar will
the bar will accept it.
Absolutely.
No, the lawyers will say, hey, for where?
No, we wouldn't even do that.
You don't need that. Well, Nathan, a few comments on the matters before we wrap up.
Yes, Kenamwaku Sena, who's in Peki, says, why can't a level of offenders be made to clean the community, work in schools as laborers, be put on large-scale farms, clean gutters, rather than being sent to prison?
That's a question we've all been asking.
Yes. And the gentleman, he has an issue with the police. He was put behind. He said he was detained for about 2 hours at the Medina district HQ opposite the Medina market. Now he's saying that his crime was that he asked the police what the charge against his father was. Now he says when they raised their voice at me for asking the question, I said there's no need to flare up. It's just a question I'm asking. I was put behind bars by one officer. I was charged for unlawful conduct and granted bail of 800 cedis after my mother and 2 other companions of hers cried their eyes out. I was detained between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. So he wants to find out whether he had been treated fairly.
This is a question of law. So we'll put it on a question of law, which is hosted by Kweku Citi. Hopefully we'll invite the GBA president for a question of law. It's a program we are doing for legal education. So it's part of what we do.
Yes. This question is asking, ask the GBA president that what does the law say about breaking the law? Why is it that politicians persistently break the law, especially when it comes to managing public funds? What can the GBA do to prevent politicians from sinking all of us? And why are they not doing it? Remember, if the actions or activities of politicians lead to the deprivation of people of critical infrastructure like hospitals and people die, it's human rights abuse.
Okay.
So he's asking what...
There's a question that somebody wants me to ask. Ernest wants me to ask you your views about constitutional review or reform. Some people say we need a new constitution. Some say constitution needs to be changed. This Fourth Republican constitution, is there a position on this from the association?
No, the association, I don't know. But for me personally, I believe in the gradualists. I think that there are some provisions that can be looked at. Wholesale, I mean, I'm very reticent when populism starts taking shape. I think that there are certain provisions. For example, one thing that readily comes into mind is I don't think that members of parliament should be members of the executive. You know, there are certain provisions that we can take and work out, but a wholesale repeal of the Fourth Republic Constitution, something I'm very uncomfortable with. I think that naturally with any document, after 30 years, you have to really look at it. But I think that we should really look at certain provisions, you know, take them, you know, piecemeal, look at the ones that best practices have shown. And for example, you know, on matters like the Constitution should have this independent fiscal stability council, which I believe, because this idea of government spending without
any control
is something that we have to. And the point is, how how much can the government borrow? You know, all these things, there should be some, because this thing about the Fourth Republic, governments seem to do everything they want with our public finance and just keep on borrowing. There must be borrowing ceilings for a year. You know, all these are things that we have to look at.
So you think the Constitution can be improved in a gradual sense without necessarily having a full constitutional overhaul?
The reason is that our constitution is peculiar. I always tell people that our constitution is more like an act of parliament. You know, this is a constitution that has even the retirement age of public officials in. I think because of our history, there was really no doubt to be created. So it's really drafted, and I think Dr. S.K.B. Asante, Solicitor General, United Nations drafting thing, you know, so it's really drafted as an act of parliament. Very simple and, you know, has so many things in there. So it really doesn't call for that wholesale repeal before we end up with a document that may scare us, you know. So that's my
Final comment from Nathan. You have a question?
Well, yeah, somebody sent me a question, was asking, sorry, the person wants to know why is it that lawyers in Ghana don't do pro bono cases often. This is the person's assertion.
Well, I don't know which country the person is living in. I always tell people that in Matthew 7, Jesus Christ says on that day, you said you were in prison, you came to visit me, help me. We are the only profession that pro bono, you see, the thing is that Ghana goes beyond the high street of Accra. And even those big commercial firms, if they tell you the things that they do for pro bono, there is no lawyer in Ghana who can say that my practice is really going to be billing. Unless maybe those who do strict corporate and nothing else. But most lawyers...
Is there a pro bono quota your members are supposed to do?
You know, we don't. But if the day we do that...
Wouldn't that be nice?
No, the day we do that, there will be a problem. Because if you see, the thing about quotas is that even though it's a minimum, it becomes the end of expectation. You know, for example...
But if you say, Charlie, lawyers in good standing do spend maybe 10% of your time doing pro bono work to give back to society because it's so expensive for poor people to get access to law. I mean, that's positive.
Let me give an example. You know, the law says that the right to counsel. In assizes, you know, those trials of indictment, almost every person must have a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know what we do? It's called assigned briefs. When it's assizes, what the judges do with collaborate the regional presidents, Bernard Avle, this matter.
Whether you like it or not.
And you are duty
He's
bound.
forcing you to do it.
You are duty bound, or less maybe you can get somebody in your chambers to do it. And then it takes precedence over all your matters. So that's what we do. So immediately you tell me that.
So it's even there already.
Yes, I mean, pro bono is an essential part of our profession. You know, I will say that the devil has confounded people. That's why people think that doctors are better people than us. But if they are the ones who ask for money to save a 3-year-old child with hole in heart. No, but you see, every profession, every country, civilized, let me say, advanced democracy has legal aid, public defenders.
Yeah.
At that point, even America doesn't have free medical aid. So you know, the thing is,
so lawyers are better than doctors.
No, in that sense, we are the only ones that carry out Jesus Christ's mandate on earth. But because the devil has confounded people,
because he was already healing, so he wasn't a lawyer, so he needed lawyers to do.
No,
free
but
law.
he said we should do good, and we are the only profession that does good as part of our.
Yeah, Echampo Mboafo is the president of the Ghana Bar Association. Is the 27th or 28th? We are not sure, but certainly one of the 20-somethings.
Let me correct this thing. Paul Adujemfi served this all 3 years. It was only, you said, for a short time. Adujemfi was 2001, 2004. It's Neo Samuels who Neo Samuels who served only 1 year.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
So Adujemfi took over from Ebokwashi, and then Kwame Tete took over from Adujemfi, and then Neo Samuels. Thank you. Good to talk to you. Nathan, thank you for being on the show.